Good evening, everyone. This is Tala with Drive-thru Therapy. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight on another episode. And as always, I'm grateful for your support. And tonight is an exciting night. We're going to be talking about one of the most important emotions that if we don't learn how to regulate it, as well as learn our relationship with it, what we do with it, we can end up not just in jail, but it can result in death. And that is anger. You know, it's a very, very powerful state of emotion and a state of being. There is no doubt in my mind after doing this therapy gig for a while that people can be addicted to anger. I was addicted to anger at one point in my life and I had to work on it. I've been wanting to kind of give you the tips and tricks of what can make us really buy into making a change in this area. Anger as an emotion is not bad. Anger can catalyze changes in our lives. If a person's being abused, anger can help them save their life and help them escape this abuse. So we need anger. If we see an injustice in the world, like Martin Luther King did, his anger towards what was happening was transformative. It transformed beautifully into peaceful inclusion for all and freedom. And so the message was pretty clear on how something that can be catalyzed by anger can turn into something great and transformative. However, anger, because of its consistent reward system in our brain that results in dopamine shots, you can equate it to an addiction to thrills or thrill seeking. The same kind of dopamine shots that you get from that, you get from anger. And so the feedback loop of this dopamine reward system is significant, which ends up resulting in addiction. So people would even equate that shot of dopamine reward is equal to gambling highs, or use of cocaine. It can be equated to a whole lot of other addictive responses. So it has a very powerful hold on our psyche, on our brain. And what it ends up doing is it can easily transform into a habit because it has that dopamine reward in it. With repetitive use, as any pathway in our brain, it will just solidify in our brain, and so we'll habitually keep using the same pathway. And that's why it eventually becomes a habit that is very tempting to use. For a lot of people, anger, besides the dopamine rush that you get or the relief that you get when you explode or experience some sort of rage, there's a relief that comes from that. And sometimes people are so used to getting their relief this way that they consistently seek things or situations or look around their world and will pull out the things that are not working out, or they might motivate anger. They seek how things are going wrong just so they can get that rush from the dopamine rush and the adrenaline and the cortisol production. And we get all that. And there's a form of relief that gets released in our body. And so it is, again, very addictive, and it can result in it becoming a habit. What's even scarier is that it's an actual motivator. It's a very good one at that, because it will engage your sympathetic response from the nervous system, and it will result in fight or flight responses and adrenaline production. And at that point, you're able to move quickly in situations where you need to survive, where there's a crisis. You're able to fight, flee, or freeze. That's wonderful if there is an actual physical threat coming at me, like a tiger, like a robber, like a car wreck. Look, those are physically prompted threats. But Fortunately, we don't need that all day. We need to use our parasympathetic responses, which is basically, it drips serotonin and dopamine in our bloodstream. And that's supposed to be used 96% of the time. That's what we're really meant to do with our bodies. We're meant to be relaxed. We're meant to be dripping with serotonin and dopamines into a very peaceful state. That's what we're meant to be. That's where we're meant to go. So at 96% is the consensus here. And I don't think people that are addicted to anger are at 96% of the day in a calm state or a parasympathetic response state. They're most of the time quickly accessing the sympathetic nervous system response of adrenaline production, cortisol, fight or flight response. And they're producing those hormones. Again, it's an excellent motivator. I mean, it will propel things forward. If I could just look at an angry situation, if I hear of a woman beating her kids and I'm going to get angry and it makes me want to just do something about it. And it propels movement and action. It's an easy way to do it. And eventually, with many people that are addicted to anger, they are motivated all day long that way. That's their main motivator, is anger. They're always looking critically at everything around them, or suspiciously, or in distrust or doubt about everything around them. They've already trained their mind to do that, to find discrepancies and look for discrepancies and make a cause out of them, make some kind of righteous cause. Now, we can, from this place of righteousness, if we're not aware of what our anger is doing, it will not be transformative in a healthy way. It will, in fact, just target all our anger. And I mean, like this rage we have on the inside, all we're going to do is just target it towards a specific cause. And we're going to act in anger, say things in anger, and continue the ripple effect karmically of anger and whatever anger in that way produces. And so that's why you will see a lot of people behind a lot of causes all the freaking time. All you gotta do is just look on social media. I'm not really involved in there, but from what I hear from people, it's a nightmare. It's a lot of people focusing on one specific cause, siding with one cause and not another, and targeting our anger towards a person who committed a horrific crime, or a group of people. And we call this justified anger. It turns into hate. And this is not what is meant for this emotion. This is undisciplined. And this anger is not constructive in any way. Because all it does is it hones in, because that's what anger does in ways. It makes you hyper focus on this one thing for a while, and you will end up completely being obsessed with the narrative and very motivated all the time to do things. That's why social media has a lot of things like causes that motivate people to be angry all the time, because in fact, that's where people end up posting it. I didn't say that's what all they do in there, because there's beautiful things that people do on social media, but it just so happens that it is also the same platform that people's anger gets targeted and get to be put in for people to see. And that is human. And its nature in us is prevalent. This is the part we're going to talk about today, is this addiction to anger, as we just kind of explored it chemically, also has a history within us. Anger in general, as an emotion, has a history. If we grew up in families where anger was not accepted, if we found ourselves repressing it, hiding our anger, or hiding any intense emotion, then later on, our relationship with anger is going to be an extreme one. Or another way to say that, an uncomfortable one. So what I mean by that is that we go to either extreme when we've had this history of repressed anger. We either get to a place where one extreme, we just continue to feel anger, which of course you're going to feel, people, you're going to feel, but you will not acknowledge it. You will not be able to acknowledge it because you will not use it. And you might not express it at all. Not only is this going to make you basically a candidate for abuse because you do not really listen or acknowledge your own anger. And if a situation can get you angry and for you to protect yourself, you will not be able to do that. You might end up being a doormat. Generally, you can be on that extreme or the other side, which is anger is now easily accessible. And it's also still an uncomfortable relationship with anger because it's like I feel anger, but then there's this compulsion to act on it. Because it becomes an emotional rationalization with anger. I use it to rationalize decision making and to problem solve. It's just a quick access to anger is what I want to say. That is also very uncomfortable because you feel it and you don't know what to do with it. So it becomes a compulsive thing to act on it. You could see it. There's the angry person that's addicted to anger is compulsively reacting to anger without even knowing what the details are. They're just so righteous in their own cause that their anger is just, it's all the time. So it's again, an addiction. It's a way where when I could not speak up and I did not feel powerful, it's like I vow subconsciously, I'm never going to feel powerless again. So in a lot of ways, anger feels powerful and acting on anger feels very powerful. We think we're resolving this anger issue by reacting on it. And then not only that, what's really bad is we justify why we got to react on the anger. So again, like there's nothing wrong with feeling angry, but the reaction, the compulsive reaction on anger, the chronic overreaction on anger that we may have, that's the part that's destructive for the human psyche, for the physical body of a human, for their spirit. It's destructive. It kills. So I want you guys to feel this with me, that when you have an uncomfortable feeling with anger, look to see if you have either extreme. Both come from a repressed past of some kind. Either I was not able to express my anger, which results in this extreme. I was not heard. I was thought to be inferior. I was mistreated. I was abused. All these things, this kind of trauma will definitely make it very uncomfortable for me to feel anger. I will do funny things with it. And it will not result in a good thing, either extreme. So try to see which extreme you might have experienced. Once you identify that, you will get to know what your relationship with anger is like, what you habitually do. And so this way, we can start to work on comfortably responding to anger. Because anger has such a hold on our psyche, because again, we produce fight or flight responses, right? And then we have a dopamine shot that just comes in when we are anger driven. We react on anger. And I mean, this thing is sexy on all counts when it occurs in our system. So again, we're attracted to it. We want to keep using it and it's going to get a hold on us. So we can rationalize reacting on anger so often. This is the part we want us to start to think about thoughtfully, because this is a wounded response. This is a response that will only create the ripple effect of more negative karma that you're going to be collecting. Because when you react this way, you may think in that moment, I was just righteous in it, right? But I want you to think ripple effect. When it comes to any action that you take, you can either have a positive one or you can have a nasty one, or you can have a neutral one, which is very desired if we work on neutralizing karma. But in this case, what we want to focus on is creating a different effect and knowing the consequence in our world when we react on anger, but it is done in a way that is not healthy, because there are a lot of reactions on anger that are done healthy. I'm just talking specifically today on the ones that habitually are not. They're chronically not healthy. Those are the ones I'm talking about. So I'm going to give you an example on how this ripple effect works when it comes to anger. Let's say and we've all been there, okay? I'm not excluded from the bunch. Like I always say, I am the bunch, and I've reacted on those emotions. I just want you to know that it's okay to admit it, because admitting its presence, that means you can work on it. You have power over it if you admit its presence. It's when you continue to justify your reactions, those unhealthy reactions, that's when it's a problem. So please go ahead and admit it. Set yourself free. It's already forgiven. You're good to go. All we need to do is just make sure that we do it better next time. Now, let's say I go to a doctor's office and the front receptionist receives me and was not very kind, or she may have been rigid in her tone, or made some sort of reference that just wasn't kind, right? And wasn't really helpful as we expect somebody in this position to be. Now, from this, she's not in a good mood, right? Or whatever the case is, then I also become a person who is not in a good mood, right? This is how fast it transfers. I become a person who's not in a good mood. I'm thinking, why is she talking to me like this? Why is this happening right now? What did I do wrong? You know what? I didn't do anything wrong. This is just an injustice. How dare she talk to me like this? She should know better because she works in a doctor's office. You just can't do this to customers, whatever nonsense righteousness I can have in my head that just makes me entitled, right? And it's going to get me angrier. And I'm just going to think I can control everything. And it just, the next thing you know is I leave the building after this appointment, and then I meet a person in I go to like a coffee shop and I order a cup of coffee and they mess up my order, and usually I would be fine with it and I would take it easy. But today, because of my past experience, I did not do well. So what I ended up doing is just taking it out on the coffee person, the barista, and I'm yelling at them and I'm just, saying, how dare you, and they're like, what just happened? Right? It's just, we could fix it for you, but they just didn't, and so on and so forth. And I could just end up going home. Maybe my husband comes and greets me, but then I feel withdrawn because I've already done some crazy shit all day that I didn't like myself for. So of course I'm not going to receive love well when my husband comes and greets me and kisses me on the cheek. And I'm like, I'm not worthy or deserving of love, because deep down inside, I know darn well it doesn't feel good to harm somebody or yell at them in any form. This does not feel humanly good to the average human. So it's not like I sit there and I like myself for it. Eventually make me isolate from others. I will not be emotionally available for the kids because I'm so busy in my head justifying why I needed to react to strangers this way. And it just, you see what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not going to be present for my kids. I might even take it out on them, and they're easy to take it out on because they can't fight me back. And I'm not going to be seeing this accurately. And you see, it's a ripple effect. So I finally that night go to sleep. Everybody's upset or angry, or they've experienced my anger. So of course, energetically, they're holding it. My kids tomorrow might take it out on another kid. They might be upset or having a rough day or even blaming themselves for my reaction. And my husband can also have a ripple effect of him just not feeling like he's good enough. And so he's like blaming himself for how I'm reacting and what I did. And then he might take it out on his, if he's a supervisor, on his coworkers or the people that work for him. This is a rippled effect, people. It's a rippled effect. So it does mean something when we react this way, and it's not thoughtful. It's not a thoughtful reaction to anger. It is a destructive action to anger. This is what happens. And it's rippled effect. Then my husband, the next morning, who's treated this coworker in some messed up way, that coworker is going to go to his family, and that coworker is going to treat them poorly or take it out on them, and so on and so forth. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what? It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It's a vibrational impact. It's an energetic wave impact that's just gonna, like any wave does, it ripples out. That's what energy is. That's what emotions are. They're energetic vibrations. And so we don't want them to have the rippling effect that is unkind and that you cannot take back once you've done it. Okay? Today, we forgive ourselves quickly. At one point, I would have needed to forgive myself really quickly when this day started the way it did. What if I would have just stopped myself after I reacted to this, maybe this receptionist right then and there? I would have just maybe said something like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I was out of line. I would have just admitted it. I apologize. Or been kinder to her. Or even if she was unkind to me, I would have just been kinder to her, asked her about her day. How's she doing? How's everything? Maybe made a comment that's funny or something, but anything to just change the tone or not address the tone that she has and react on him. If I would have just stopped that reaction, this ripple effect wouldn't have occurred. Isn't that wonderful to know that where I can actually stop it right there at the receptionist? Then later on, it wouldn't have been that barista, and then my husband and the kids and my husband's coworkers and the kids at school or my kids' teachers that would have had to experience the rippling effect of the night before when mom was overreactive and could not control her anger. All of this is a rippled effect, friends. I need it to matter to you today. I need that to matter. When you're looking at it this way, you're going to make sure that you are responsible with your anger. And that's what I want to make sure that I implement today is the responsibility that anger has within you. It's not just any emotion. It can destroy. It can be effective in saving the life of a woman who's consistently being beaten by her husband. It can save her by having enough anger to leave her husband and to protect herself. At the same time, that same emotion could result in me harming someone, killing someone, me ending up in jail. Like that's what anger can do if it is not controlled. There's nothing wrong with the emotion of anger. Whatever message we've received in the past about anger being bad, it is not bad. It is how we reuse it. It is how we use it. There has to be wisdom and responsibility in the way we use it. This goes for me too. So it's an act of discipline and practice because we have already established pathways and habitual pathways in compulsively reacting to anger. We have to retrain our mind and our body not to react compulsively or negatively to anger. And sometimes it starts with what I'm about to tell you how to do today. It starts with waiting. Right. So what happens for us, all of us humans, when we get angry, there's about a good amount of time, and I'm going to put it in like 20-minute time. There's a 20-minute time where your brain spikes up in these fight or flight responses, and it needs about 20 minutes. Some books say, and I would say for me, as I've assessed it, if I'm really angry, you're still kind of new to this mix, you need about 20 minutes. That's what I like generally, to just not respond. So this way your hormones can come down. When you consistently start doing that, when you start to just stop your responses on anger, then you're training your brain to not compulsively react on it anymore. So you're changing this compulsion that goes along with this feeling, which is great news. We want to do that. We want to change this consistent, compulsive, automatic response to anger, which is I just react on it as a way to solve a problem, like all the time. We stop this reaction. You're training your brain now to just sit still. And what ends up happening in this wonderful time that you're waiting, you're going to realize that it wasn't that big of a problem to begin with, as much as I felt like it was, right? It is a huge feeling to be consumed because you're hijacked. Anger hijacks the brain. So in that moment, you're not thinking logically. Logic kind of gets thrown out of the window when you're angry like that. But unfortunately, people use anger as a logic, as a logic and to make decisions and to react. That's a problem. So we have to retrain that. And when we retrain that, it means we just wait and you're watching to see what happens after. The world does not fall apart if I don't react on my anger. As a matter of fact, most of the time you'll see that you would have prevented this rippling effect, because that's what anger does. It can result in a very negative pattern. So we have in that moment to transform this secondary emotion of anger into something that is very useful for us. This takes me to the next point that I want you to know, which is, in order for us to make sure that we help control our anger and use it well, we got to get to understand that anger is a secondary emotion, meaning that the core emotion behind anger is going to be something like sadness, disappointment, loss, these things that we feel helpless when we actually feel. Another bunch of emotions that we may not have healthy relationships with. We quickly turn these emotions to anger because anger feels powerful, and it makes us that go through this uncomfortable feeling of disappointment, loss, heartbreak, sadness. We can quickly go into anger and we feel better in that moment. We get that dopamine rush I talked about. But it's all a false idea. It's like you're reinforcing neural pathways. I just want you to stop reinforcing, basically. So first we talked about the way we do it is by taking a break. Whatever you do, just take that break. It starts off with 20 minutes. I think that's a good range for anybody who's just recently starting to learn about their anger and their relationship with it. Take the 20-minute break. The second thing is to make sure that you identify the feeling behind anger, the true feeling. And what I want you to do, let's say it's disappointment. I got disappointed because I got laid off. And instead of contributing to narratives that can just make me angry all day long, right? They shouldn't have done this. Who do they think they are? And then I start dissecting and discrediting supervisors and coworkers, and they're all bad and they're out to get me. And I could sit brewing in this anger for a while, friends, or I can deal with the idea in accepting the loss and understanding the loss. First, we got to admit it's there. Like, I felt the loss. I even feel fear. Fear turns into anger real quick. That there's a fear that I lost my job, how I'm going to fail my family, and I have this fear. These very deep emotions that are very hard to deal with. The best way I can tell you is to cover them. And I mean, you have to visualize this. You're covering them with a blanket of love. You're hugging these feelings with love. So you're taking fear and you're hugging it with love. You're taking the narrative of anxiety and you're hugging it with love. You're taking the feeling of loss and you're hugging it with love. You are hugging it with love. You're looking at these very difficult feelings with love. We've just learned to look at them with anger. But again, anger makes us feel powerful, hence its addictive nature to keep utilizing it more and more and more. And like any addiction, with repetitive use, the tolerance also build up. And then we're going to want to do more and more and more and more. And this is very important, you guys. It's just going to deteriorate you and break down whatever it is that you're trying to build with another person, whether it's trust, respect. It's just going to wipe the floor with your reputation because you're a hothead, and people don't trust hotheads and they walk around eggshells when they're around them. So ladies and gentlemen, I've been there. I have been the hothead, and I always say that. So there's no shame in it. I know that on the inside, I have this very large space today in myself of self-forgiveness. So all that's left for me is to use this information when I make a mistake or react in a way I don't like. I just process it the way I'm showing you how to process it. But you're going to add now this huge element that I'm going to talk about next, this huge space of forgiveness. So this is the number 3 thing that we're going to just really implement in there is already forgiven. Just think, I need to feel forgiveness and feel love. So I put a blanket of love on it, and I want to also implement self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness first, because you can't give what you don't have. So it's hard to forgive another person if you don't forgive yourself. Go ahead and forgive yourself. You are going to act so much better towards others. You're going to have so much more patience just because you have compassion for yourself. They go hand in hand. So if you want to make this significant change, we're just going to have this quick element of self-forgiveness and then quickly move on to apologizing, whatever it is I need to do next if I need to do it. So this way you can right what is wrong and it will have another rippling effect rather than the one we just left with when it came to anger and just left it there. We can change this rippling effect. We can do it better whenever we figure out our mistake. So it's not a problem. It's not a problem. It can be corrected by just producing another rippling effect, a kind one, a compassionate one, whatever you need to do here. So I want to make sure that I leave you with as many options as possible. And notice it is not difficult what I'm asking you to do, but it requires discipline and repetitive practice of this discipline. And I think once you start to see the amazing results of withholding from reacting on your anger, and take a look around and how many terrible rippling effects that you just prevented, you're going to feel so good about yourself. You're going to start seeing people with more clarity because you're no longer imposing your intention and your narrative on them. You're not projecting it onto them anymore, which usually comes from a place of anger. If you're addicted to anger, it's going to end up being pessimistic or it's just going to be critical. It just won't be kind. So I will just start to see that people are just who people are. And it's not necessarily accurate what I see them as, because I'm not coming from a healthy place. My place, my repressed anger place that kind of explodes is not healthy. It's not correct or accurate in how I'm looking at people, but I am projecting it onto people. I'm projecting it onto them. And so unfortunately, they pay for my hurt, my pain, my past suffering. They pay for it. And hence the ripple effect is generational and doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. But we can produce a new rippling effect. That we know for sure. So thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I hope this was helpful to you to get you to become more aware of what anger or the story of anger is in your life and how we can transform it to something amazing and useful. We don't want to say anger is good or bad. It's neither. Anger, it's useful. But we need to discipline it as we would if we had a gun. Think of it as a weapon. Anger can be a weapon. What do we do with weapons? Well, people that have handled a weapon learn to respect it. They don't just whip it out and show it off and they have a respect for the weapon. They make sure that they hide it. They put it in a safe. They have to take the proper precautions. They get trained on it. They have a lot of respect for it. And that is how I want you to deal with anger because it's so powerful. It can kill. You need to make sure that you treat the emotion of anger with a lot of respect, a lot of discipline, and it will serve you well. It will serve you and others well. That's what we want to do because in a lot of ways, a gun can save your life, but also a gun can kill someone. So it's a weapon just like anger. And I want you to think of it the same way. Please treat it with respect and practice. Constant practice on not reacting on every angry feeling. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be better than it was before. That's all. We're just looking for better. Just better. We will work on it. And that's what we come to this earth to learn, how to work on these very powerful emotions to create a beautiful rippling effect. That's what we want to do. And what a worthy cause. Thank you guys again so much for joining me tonight. I'm sending you love and light. And never, ever, ever say to someone, stop making me angry, because they can't control your hormones. This has been an episode of Drive-thru.